Yeah.
They leave.
So, are you good?
Yep.
So let's just have a talk.
So I started in
What's-
real estate almost 15 years ago. I was working in development and management. That's what I was doing mostly. And I decided after working with real estate agents and brokers, I decided that I really would enjoy it. That was actually after working in a sales office of a condo project, and I really, really enjoyed it.
What you imagine really what actually turned out to be?
So
Or?
what I imagined was that you wouldn't, I assumed, I'm sure like everyone else assumes, because a lot of people ask me when they speak to me, like for instance now I just had a baby and people go, oh, are they going to give you maternity leave? And I go, no.
You're self-employed now.
You're
yeah.
self-employed. When
What it
I
was
was
going to
envisioning
be.
it, I didn't know, and I learned in school, in the commercial courses and in the residential, that you're really going to have to hustle. So I knew how to hustle, but I didn't know how much you're going to have to hustle.
Yeah, to what
and
extent?
that it's really all you. However, when I came to the agency, you explained to me how it works and how you do it, and it ended up being a lot easier than I thought.
So year one,
Year one,
how long did it take to get, if you remember, your first transaction?
I remember year one, my first transaction, I closed in a few months. And I got my first listing in Westmount through cold calling.
Yeah, oh, I remember that.
Yeah,
the
it
house
was Lower
down, yes.
Westmount.
That was
And
not an easy transaction either, I remember. And you know what I remember too? You
Yeah.
said, because I said, how many calls did it take to get that listing? Do you remember that number?
I don't remember the number. Do you?
715. Now, it wasn't in one sitting.
No, it was in
was-
several.
Over a period of time, but
Yeah.
because I like to have these statistics, this data,
Yeah.
and that's great. And that I also remember how much that was, and that was not because you double-ended it, if I remember correctly.
Yes. Yeah.
Do you remember the amount?
No, I don't remember
I
the
remember
amount.
the amount. It was a few. It was a 25,000 or something like that.
It
Is
was
that
a
right?
it was a big commission. Yeah.
It's
It
all
was
very
a-
interesting. So that was your first listing, but it wasn't your first transaction.
It wasn't my first transaction. I had other transactions as well. I got another listing through a friend of a friend. Again, it wasn't in one sitting. Everything had to be sort of fought for, and that's what people don't understand when they go into brokerage. And I think that's why people burn out very quickly, and they decide to sometimes drop it.
They underestimate, is what you're saying?
They underestimate, and I think when we were in a really hot market, people were running to do this kind of work, and they didn't realize that it's really like you have your own business. It's like
Yes.
opening up, opening up a window shop, or opening up a bike shop, or
Except you're by yourself, more or less.
Except you're by
There's no
yourself,
other
more or less.
employees. All responsibilities fall on you. So,
yeah.
how fast do you think, or do you remember, was it for you to adapt to this? Like, did it take more than 1 year before you got comfortable with the reality of the day-to-day of a real estate broker?
Actually, I find that you reach a sort of equilibrium later on, once you find out what your limits are, what your boundaries are, and that you may have limits to how much you can go running. But at the beginning, I think I was right away very comfortable with everything, and I loved that I was meeting different people every day. I loved that I was speaking to different people. I loved that I was able to work with people not just on a surface level, but also have that intimate aspect of it, where I knew a bit more about their lives.
Yeah.
I knew about their families.
The relationship side of not the
relationship.
transaction per se.
Yeah, and I remember another broker on the selling side of a transaction, because that was what I enjoyed. I felt for my clients, and I really, really protected them. And I remember this broker asked me, and his client asked, was I related to my client? Like, was he a member of my family? Because I was so protective.
So close, or so caring for.
So caring for them, because they didn't understand why I would care to protect them so much. I went above and beyond the call of duty. That's my personality.
And it's what also makes a difference in how long you're going to last as a real estate broker. If you
Yeah.
push it also further and not just do the basic and
Yeah.
just transactional. Let's go back to prospecting, because you said that your first listing you got through
Through cold
cold
calling,
like
yeah.
straight cold calling. You took a neighborhood, well, the Westmount,
Yeah.
if I'm not right. You took
Yeah.
the city of Westmount, and then you decided, I'm just gonna open
I'm just gonna call.
And so is this still what you do today, or have you adapted now that you're experienced and successful as a broker?
Well, you still need to cold call. You still need to cold call, definitely.
It's your preferred method, or would you say there's something else that you do that you will prioritize?
Well, you also meet people in your environment. So if you go to the gym, I once got a listing through my Pilates class. You know, you can get a listing at a coffee shop through a friend of a friend. Someone may run into you in a building where they live, where you have a listing.
So then, what I call working your network, your database.
Yeah, working your network, your database.
Would you say that that's a 50-50 with your, like, I'm talking about you, not generally speaking, but for you, is that you get 50% of your business through your network, the other 50 through?
Yeah, I would say.
Yeah?
Yeah, I would say that's the case.
What about social media? How is that important in your business?
Social media is great too. I find everyone does it.
I find the opposite, actually. It's funny. This is good.
I find that on social media, because everyone is doing the same thing, it is harder to stand out. Do I get business through social media? Yeah, especially through friends and through friends of friends. And
so what do you mean by they do the same thing? Can you describe what you mean by, like, what would be the same thing?
I find that you need to stand out on social media.
So but you did start, if I'm not mistaken.
I was doing interviews with a mortgage broker.
Yes,
yeah.
Which I thought was great.
Yeah, that definitely helped me stand out, and people saw what I was all about and the way I work, because I had a baby.
Ah, yes, a big life-changing event.
Yeah,
and that's
exactly.
now, what, 6
She's 6 months
months
old.
in?
Yeah, 6 months in, and it's wonderful, and I'm working at the same time.
Let's talk about that. How do you adapt to a life-changing event like that? I mean, if you know, I have 5 boys, so I'm asking because this is your first.
So I find as a mom, you're more of the primary caregiver, so I wouldn't be able to do what you do, but definitely you need to accept help from every single person around you who offers it. And you need to trust everyone in your environment.
And let's clarify, you decided to keep on going, more or less. I mean, you didn't suspend your license.
I never stopped. Yeah.
You kept your license going, although naturally you're not as, I'm sure you're not prospecting as much.
Physically, I can't.
No, but so the adapting to the situation is important too. As a self-employed people, you get thrown different scenarios and situations.
I think you also need to incorporate your child into the environment as well. I've brought my daughter to the office several times. I've even closed a luxury rental with her at the appointment.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, so
I think the kids have to adapt to us. Like, to a certain extent, we shouldn't be changing drastically our lives for our kids. The kids have to be the ones that adapt.
So I'm with you on that, but to an extent, I'm not extremely with you on that. I think it's important for them to see, you know, that their parent is disciplined, that they're hardworking, and I think it sets a very good example for them. But I still like to make it seem like I'm not at work. So when I bring her to the office, I make it seem like we're just meeting people. I'm not, you know, working, because I find when you're full on working, you're not making as much eye contact. And I find with my daughter, it's the eye contact for her is super important.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what's the next phase for you when you look at your real estate business, having this life-changing event, and are you changing anything in your next 6 months to a year in the way you work with your clients? Are you getting more help? You said you need to get help.
I'm working with colleagues, definitely, to give a better service, to make sure that my service is actually not changing for my clients. So my clients are usually okay with that. And I'm always available anyways. I've taken very complicated calls with my daughter there, and I make it work. I just persevere and I make it work. And you can't take life too seriously, because if you do, then you can't get anything done. You can't enjoy being with your child, and you can't enjoy your job. So
Your biggest challenge right now, would you say, is your time
Yeah,
managing time?
I would say that that's it. So I try not to let people sort of take advantage for minor things. I really try to focus on big things that are going to have the biggest results. So now when I use up my time, when I use my time, I try to make sure that the things I'm doing are not just wasting time wasting and just to please someone for no reason. I really make sure that the work I'm doing, I'm not wasting any time.
This makes me think of a lot of your transactions, a lot of your clientele at some point was you had rentals, you had condo
Sales.
owners, you had single family dwelling, up higher end properties. You took pretty much,
Yeah,
you serviced, I
everything.
should say, any and all
And I
clients.
also did commercial leasing
Commercial.
at an industrial building where they were doing women's workspaces. It was actually spaces for female entrepreneurs. We're still doing it because it was something smaller. I had to give it to a colleague temporarily, but there as well, I diversified a lot of what I
But
do.
where does that come from? Where you came in with that mindset that I'm gonna help everybody. I'm not gonna just just take care of high end properties, because you could have. You have the network.
Hi.
There you go. See, you're
Yeah,
known
running into a
on
friend.
Green Avenue. Everybody knows you.
Yeah.
You could have chosen to just service a certain type of clientele, a higher end clientele. Where does that come from? Is that from just the way you were brought up, your family?
It's
Your...
probably the way I was brought up, and also it's my personality to always want to sort of dip my feet into everything, and it's more enjoyable like that. And I find you're more likely to meet more different types of people if you do that.
And your personality, I have to say that you're always willing, and we said, do you want to do this, and you jumped on it.
Immediately, with my daughter in the back seat making some grunting sounds.
But
Yeah.
that's important. I think that's a key characteristic of a successful individual, is they jump in, and I'm sure it's not a comfortable thing always to say yes to things, but I noticed that from the many years that I've known you, that
Yeah.
you're a go-getter. You're going to say yes to things that make you uncomfortable.
Actually, that's probably my mantra. It's literally doing things every day that make me uncomfortable.
And it pays off. You see it now after X amount
Yeah,
of years.
of course. Of
You
course.
see the results. The one thing is also, the when you called with questions or things, you took on contracts, you took on clients, even though you weren't 100% sure of
Yeah, exactly.
of all the details.
Yeah.
So I think that's something that I've noticed in successful people, and I think it's important that if you're watching this and you don't always feel comfortable with different scenarios, situations, that you remember that most of the time the things that are makes us think I'm going to be uncomfortable are the things that we should do that are going to give
Yeah.
us the greatest result.
And
Can you think of a few examples? Maybe I don't want to put you on
a
the spot.
few
but
examples.
where
I'm
you-
trying to think. Well, I'll give you an example. Many examples. I get clients all the time when I'm signing a contract. They're like, I'm worried about this, or I'm worried about this, or I'm worried about that. And I always say, don't worry. It's all good. We will figure out the problem as we go along. 99% of the problems can be resolved. And I always tell them, nothing scares me. Like sometimes people tell me, like I also sell a lot of plexes, and people are like, I'm worried this isn't in good shape, that isn't in good shape. What if the buyer, has an issue with it? And I always tell them, nothing is gonna be detrimental to the sale.
No.
It's just the way you present it, and also people need to know what's happening anyways. It makes your life easier after the transaction is over.
I think what we should do is, since you know Westmount very well, you're a specialist of Westmount Square. Why
Very
don't
well.
we just go check it out, and you
Yeah,
can
sure.
tell us a bit about the property?
Yeah, sure.